Hello, everyone. I think I'm a little too comfortable. Let's see if I can change something up. Ah, that's more like it. Welcome back. I'm your host, Mrs. Audrey Codner-Gibson from ACG Math Tutoring. Are you ready to do some more math? Are you ready to have some more fun and some more entertainment with me? All right. If so, stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. I'm Mrs. Codner-Gibson over from ACG Math Tutoring. So hopefully you guys are ready for another day of math, trying to get those foundational skills of Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. So just like always, we want to kind of share my screen with you guys so we can kind of get ourselves started with this fun activity. So today we're going to work on using those proportions that we did last time, but we're going to do it in word problems. Word problems? I don't like word problems. You're going to be fine, okay? I'm going to break it down to the point that you're not even going to love word problems, but you're going to be like, you know what? I can do this word problem thing, right? So we're going to look at Common Core Standards ASSE.4, and we're going to actually look at a review of the exit ticket that we did last time. So we worked about ratios, we talked about proportions, and remember, a proportion is basically like two ratios that are equal to each other, okay? And a ratio is just another way of saying a fraction. So what we're going to do with these following ratios, which is shown in different ways, is we're going to simplify them as fractions as our answer, or we're going to solve for the missing number. So for number one, we have 25 pens to 30 books. So if I rewrote that, it would be 25 over 30. Now noticing my one digits, it's a 5 and a 0. So if I recall all the way back to that whole divisibility test, that means they should be divisible by 5. So if I do that, that means if I divide the numerator by 5 and I divide the denominator by 5, it will get me down to its simplest form, which 25 divided by 5 will give me 5. 30 divided by 5 will give me 6. So my lowest or my simplest fraction for number one is going to be 5/6. And another way of saying it, it means there's 5 pens for 6 books. Okay? For number two, so we're saying is 2/5 equal to 6/15 a proportion? Now, the only way we can find out is if we're going to do what's called cross multiply. So that means I'm going to multiply the 2 and the 15, which gives me 30. And then I'm going to multiply the 5 and the 6, which also gives me 30. So since I get the same answer for both situations, that means those two ratios does make a proportion, okay? So now we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to find the missing number. So when we do our cross multiplication, 3 times n gives me 3n, and then 7 times 9 gives me 63. So we're going to do another video on how to solve one-step equations. But in this case, I want to tell you, when you don't see a plus or a minus sign in between the number and the variable, you're assuming that it's multiplication. So if I do the inverse of multiplication, which is division, that means I'm going to divide both sides by the 3. So 3 divided by 3 gives me 1n, or just n. And then 63 divided by 3 gives me 21. So the missing number for this would be 21. Now, if you notice that 3/9, they have the same divisibility of 3. So that means if I multiply 3 times 3, it'll give me 9. That means if I multiply the 7 times 3, it should give me 21. Just another way to look at it. So this is what we're going to do today. So today, you should be saying to yourself, I can identify and solve word problems using proportions. Yes, you can. I know for a fact you're like, lady, no, I can't. I'm turning off the video. No. Leave it there, okay? So you can identify, we can set things up, and then we can solve using the information that we used from the last video. So we already did the reviewing the exit ticket. Now we're going to go into the guided notes and the practice. And like as usual, we're going to close everything up with that exit ticket. So as I mentioned, let's do a quick refresher on proportions. So a proportion is formed when two ratios are equal. In a proportion, the cross portions or the cross products are equal. Okay, we did that for the beginning. So then to find the number and the proportion, we had to cross multiply. So those three items we just reviewed, looked at last time's exit ticket. So now the helpful hints. So set up a proportion and labels the missing part with a variable. So I'm going to show you through example what I mean. Be consistent with your setup. If anything, this is vital, okay? Whatever you do as your setup for the numerator has to be the same setup for your numerator in the other ratio, okay? We are going to cross multiply, and then you're going to label your answers with a word. So what is my unit? Are we looking at feet? Are we looking at miles? Are we looking at kilometers? What are we looking at, okay? So you just have to sum everything up. Yeah, you got an answer of 5, but 5 what? All right? So let's look at an example. So a car travels 384 kilometers, okay, in 6 hours. How far can the car travel in 8 hours? And I know if you're like around my age, you're probably like, oh my gosh, remember the train problems? And it's not going to be that serious, okay? So this is what we're looking at. So I'm looking at this first sentence. So a car travels, huge circle. So a car travels at 384 kilometers in 6 hours. So I can set it up like this, 384, and I'll write my km, over my 6 hours. So notice, I have my kilometers as my numerator, and I have my hours as my denominator. That same process is going to happen for the other ratio. So that means my kilometers should be as my numerator, and the hours should be my denominator. So now, if we take a look at the question, what are we looking for? It's asking how far can the car travel? So that should be my kilometers, right? And then they're saying in 8 hours. So that 8 is going to be down here with my denominator. And guess what we're going to use up top for the numerator? We're going to use the letter X because we don't know what the kilometers are. And that's what we're looking for. So if we don't know what something is, use a variable, okay? So if I may reflect back, so set up a proportion for number 1 for the helpful hint and label the missing part with a variable, okay? So now we're going to cross multiply, just like how we did before to see if it's a proportion. So we got 6 times x, which gives me 6x. And then we have 384 times 8, and I'm not going to lie to you. I looked this up and calculated ahead of time. I'm not a super genius, but I just know how to break concepts down, okay? So 384 times 8 gives me 3,072. So now from here, like I said before, if there's not a plus or minus sign in between the number and the variable, that means you're multiplying. And the inverse of multiplication is division. So what I'm going to divide, I'm going to divide that 3,072 from both sides from 6. So when I do that, I have x equals 512. But this is when it comes down to that last part, what I say for number 4. Label your answers with the word or unit. So 512 what? As we said, we're looking for the kilometers, so it's going to be 512 kilometers. Okay, let's try another one. So we got 2 pounds of chicken costs $8. We wish. Okay, how much would 5 pounds cost? All right, so I'm looking at that first sentence. So I have 2 pounds, okay, over my cost, which is $8. So my ratio should be set up to pounds over my dollars, my money, okay? So I'm looking at the last sentence. So how much would 5 pounds cost? So this time they're giving me my numerator, which is 5. but I'm looking for my denominator, which is x. So again, I can cross multiply. So 2 times x gives me 2x equals 8 times 5, which gives me 40. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 2. The 2's are going to simplify to 1x, or just x. And then 40 divided by 2 will give me 20. 20 what? $20. Okay? So in their case, 5 pounds of chicken will cost $20, obviously before tax. You know. So now I got Martia. Hey, don't worry, everyone. I'm going to try to use a lot of former students or current students' names. So Martia earns $180 for working 14 hours. Okay. How many hours must she work to earn $300? So again, we're going to set up my proportion. So I take a look. It says $180 for 14 hours. I know, right? What's going on with my lines? So we got $180, and then we have 14 hours. So they want to know how many hours. Where's my x going to go? The numerator, denominator? Denominator, good job. Because my dollars is in my numerator. So now from here, all we have to do is cross multiply. So we have 180x is equal to 300 times 14, which gives me 4,200. That one I kind of had to do in my head. Not bad. All right, so now I have to divide 180 by my 4,200. These simplify to a 1x or just an x. But guess what? Even if I do my trick, let me cross out my zeros, then I have 420 divided by 18. I'm still going to get like 23 with my repeating 3's. So it's saying how many hours. So I almost have to work, or she has to work like 23 3/10 of an hour in order to earn that $300. That's a lot, right? So this is basically how we're doing it. So I'm going to have to write my word hours, or my phrase hours, because that's what we had to look for. All right, one more example. We're doing so good at this. So now I'm going to show you ratios in a different form. Remember, we said we have fractions. We can say something to something, or we can look at colons. So in a class, the ratio of boys to girls is 8:5. If, sorry, it's supposed to be capital I, there are 75 girls in the class, how many boys are there in the class? So you're probably like, where do I start? I don't see any fractions. But there is a fraction right here, 8:5. And they also give you the clue right here. Boys to girls is 8:5. So that means if I have 8 boys, sorry, I got a little crazy with the S. That means there was 5 girls. So they want to know if there's 75 girls. So where's that 75 going? In the denominator. So we got 75 girls because it's got to match up. If we put the girls in the denominator, the girls stay in the denominator. If we put the boys in the denominator, the boys stay in the denominator. But in this case, the boys are in the numerator. All right. So we want to know how many boys there are in the class. So right away, we're going to that cross multiplication. So 5x, and then we have 8 times 75, 600. And then we divide both sides by 5, because the inverse of multiplication is division. So now we got 600 divided by 5, which gives me 120. 120 what? It's going to be 120 boys. So that's how many boys are in that class. Can you imagine? All right. So taking a look at our learning target, I can identify and solve word problems using proportions. Yes, you can. You didn't think you could in the beginning, but that's what you did. High five. Whoop, whoop. All right. Then we're looking at the agenda. So we did the review of the exit ticket. We looked at our guided notes and examples. We did a couple of practice problems. Now let's get with that exit ticket. So for exit ticket, you only have only two problems to do. So if 12 oranges cost $4.80, what would be the cost of 3 oranges? Too much truth into this. Okay, Grace can travel 9 miles on her bike in 2 hours. At this rate, how far can she travel in 5 hours? So if we're just looking at those two, try to answer them as best you can. And then remember, look for the next video. So don't forget, if you really like these videos and you're just like, lady, you're kind of breaking it down to me. Or, yeah, this is kind of cool. I wish we can do a little more solving. Guess what? The solving piece is coming. And the only way you can find out when it comes is hit that notification button and also subscribe. Don't be afraid. I try to make it fun. I try to get it short and sweet, but at the same time, try to keep it informative. So, as always, keep up the good work. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the entertainment and all the good feedback. All right, so hopefully everyone's going to do all right, and have a good one.